unfortunately, the first part wasn't recording. I thought it was. So, again, on the new form, the submit button is not required, or the company name is not required to make the submit button active. That's good news for a lot of you who were entering contacts. You had to put the first name or the last name into the company field because it wouldn't let you otherwise. Something else on this form that I wanted to point out that is important for you to notice is the added relationship to it. The old form that we had, not this short form, but the regular one, used to allow you to, it would automatically put the creator's name as having a relationship to the record. Well, same thing here. I'm logged in as myself, and it put my name in. If you are adding a record for somebody else, hit the X, it will take their name out, and now just start typing in who the person is who has the relationship, who the person is that asked you to add the record, that gave you the business card or the sticky note or whatever it is they gave you. In this case, this is the person who has the relationship, so I could just select them. If the person's not there, just go ahead and type in their name. Just that simple. Choose your relationship type, whatever that is. You guys have the ability to edit this pull down or customize this pull down depending on what your office wants. Okay? So put account manager. When you go to enter in a company name, just like before, as you type it in, the name is going to come up. If you select it, it will populate all the address information and the office phone and all this info that was attached to the company. If there is no company, you go to put it in and the company does not come up. Just go ahead and type it and it will create a company record with whatever you typed in there. It automatically creates that new company record. But that's why it's so important when you're typing it in that you make sure that the record isn't already there, because you don't want to create a duplicate.
Mm-hmm.
Okay?
And now, Keith, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
This is Allie. I submitted a help desk ticket because I'm having an issue with the relationships. It, of course, will say my name, and I'll want to change it to the agent that gave me the business card. And when I do that and hit submit, when I go then into that record and I look, I'm still there as the person with the relationship.
And Allie, I got that. I got that task, and that moved up to the very top of the queue for them to fix. Because we realized
I wasn't sure if you good. I wasn't sure if you had gotten any progress made on that, so that's why I wanted to bring it up. Great.
I haven't followed up this morning because I've been on training calls all morning, but I will follow up afterwards.
Okay, thank you.
Guys, just so you know, is what Allie's talking about, and this is something that my expectation is it should be fixed today, but I just need to follow up. But that if you change the relationship, the person that has the relationship, it's not keeping. So I could add someone else's name, but when I submit it, whoever created it, their name still shows up as having the relationship. That will be fixed very soon. If it's not already fixed, again, I haven't tested this morning, but it should be fixed very soon because we realize that is something that can mess up your data and whatnot. So, but aside from that, if you're adding the record for somebody else, go in and change it from your name, the creator, to whoever asked you to add the record, and you shouldn't have a problem with that. As soon as we get that resolved, which again, if it's not already resolved, it will be very soon. Okay, that was moved up to the very top of the queue. So, are there any other questions before we move on?
I have a quick question.
Yes.
Is there a way to associate a contact with multiple companies? So, for instance, we've got a guy in our office who works for TNRG Development, but he's associated with several entity names. So, like when we're closing out a transaction, we want to be able to look at his name and see that he's related to those entities, which we have as companies. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do know what you mean, and that's a very good question. So let's do this. Let me go ahead and submit this record, and I'm gonna show you something, which will hopefully resolve your question. So here's the record that we just created. Now, from this record, I'm going to go ahead and click on company name right here. So here's the company record. I want to edit this because I want you to see there's a place for you to insert a parent company. Okay, so you can create multiple entities. Okay, and actually, let me do this. Let me close this. Here's our contact. I'm going to go to our main dashboard. Hover over contacts and click on the new button to create a new company. When this new company is created, so here, I did this in an earlier training session. My first entity, that's the company name. Okay, so here it is. Now is what I'm going to do is I'm going to edit this record and I'm going to link it to the parent. Oops. Okay, so now it's linked to the parent company. But then there's something else that I'm going to do as well. And is what that is, let me hit finish. It's the relationships is where I recommend adding whoever the agent is, or excuse me, whoever the contact is. I recommend adding them as having a relationship to the entity as well. This is our entity, right? This is our first entity. You can see it shows me who the parent company is right here. And I also have right here. So I'm going to hit the new button, and I know that Joe Client has a relationship. And in this case, this is just a side note. See how there's two of them? This is the one I want. The bottom one is the one I want. But if I want both of them, I'm going to select the little select box and just hit select checked and put them both in. And now I can choose the relationship type, right? So salesperson, whatever it is, or in this case, maybe you add client or you add prospect or something of that nature to it. So now when I open up this entity record, I see that Joe Client from Demo Realty has a relationship with the entity. Did that make sense, what I did?
Yes, it does.
I added the contact with their main company first, the main company record, I added the parent, I added the entity, then I added the parent to the entity, and I also added the contact as having a relationship to their entity. And I think it would make sense if you guys, I'm sorry to interrupt you, I was just going to say, I think it would make sense if you added a relationship type that indicated that this person, you know, we know that this is the entity, but maybe you add entity because the company name isn't going to be that. It's not going to be that descriptive. So maybe you add something that says relationship type, entity, or something. You all have the ability to customize your pull downs. So go in and do something descriptive. So when you open up that entity, you look and see, oh, Joe Client from Demo Realty, you know, understand why he's on there.
When you click on Demo Commercial Real Estate, is it going to show that first entity there? Somewhere?
It is not. It is not. But if I go to, under relationships, it does. Because that rolls up everything because it's the parent. Because you linked it as the parent, it does roll it up. Do you notice how these are both there?
Yes. So it'll show it on Joe's profile too then, that he has a relationship to First Entity.
It does not show it on Joe's. It doesn't show it on Joe's record. Let me make a note of that because it probably should. See if we can get that added. On the entity, on the company record in the entity, it all shows up, but on Joe's, it doesn't. And it should, in my opinion. So, see, let me talk to the powers that be here and see if we can get something changed there so it does show up.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep. Is there anyone that had any questions about what we just did there? Because I know that's something that comes up on a regular basis. You have owners and tenants that have entities set up for tax purposes most of the time. So I understand that does come up. Anybody have any questions about that? No? All right. Now, if this is a external contact, and when you're creating a new record, a new contact record, if you notice on here, there's nowhere for you to determine if the record is internal or external. So by default, the record is an external record. And for those of you that don't know the distinction between internal and external, internal means they work at your company, at your office. External means they don't. Internal, they work at your company. External, they don't. Okay? So, for our contact that we created, it creates an external record. So, once the record is created, you need to go in and edit that record. And I realize it's an extra step, but you only need to do this for an internal contact. Edit the record, and underneath the contact settings is where you're going to do that. Now, only a network administrator in the system has the ability to create internal records. So if you're not a network administrator, and that's a level of security in your system for those of you that don't know, if you go in and you create a contact, it's external by default. If you edit the record and come in here and you're not a network administrator, when you go to this pull down, external is your only choice. So if you need to create an internal contact, you have to have a network administrator edit that same record and change it from external to internal. And the reason why only an administrator can do it is because there are security settings that go along and other things that go along with creating an internal record, which we're going to talk about in a minute. Okay? But that's the reason. If some of you open it up and external is your only choice, don't get frustrated. It's just because you don't have the security rights on your login and password to create those internal records. Okay? And if that is something you're going to be doing on a regular basis, I recommend that you talk to whoever your administrators are and get your security bumped up so you don't have to go through anybody else. Okay, you can just do what you need to do without having to get anybody else involved. Okay? So, are there any questions about that? All right. One other thing I wanted to point out, if you notice on this external record, I have this investment profile tab. I purposely gave myself the rights so that shows up. Some of you have that, and they're saying like, I don't want that. Why? I don't add any of that information. Why do I need to see that? Well, you really don't need to see that. That is a security setting on your login and password. look, when you're creating a login and password for somebody, if they don't need to see that investment tab on the wizard, if it's someone internal, if it's a marketing coordinator, if it's an admin, if it's somebody who doesn't need to see it, then just unselect it, and they won't see it on the wizard. The only time this needs to be selected primarily is probably going to be for your agents, right? Other than an agent, the rest of you probably don't need that investment profile. But this controls this tab right here, if you see it or not. So for those of you that are frustrated because you open it and say, why do I have to hit continue? If I hit continue, it goes to this other tab that I don't ever use. Get it off there. Simplify it. You don't need to see it. And that's done through the logins. Okay? That's just that investment profile right there. And you can turn it on or off for anybody in the office. If they need it, turn it on. If they don't, I would just remove it. Okay? So, are there any questions about adding that?
I had a question.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't understand what the key contact is, what the purpose is of that. What does that do?
Good question. This is just a field to search from. So I'm going to make the analogy. Key contact and contact type are very similar in that there's no security associated with either one. It's just a field. It's a way for you to tag a contact record as a key contact. And then when you're searching for contacts, it's a field that you can search from.
Okay. It's like it's almost like favoriting, like tagging favorites, or frequently used or something. Everyone can view them no matter what their level is.
Correct. There's no security associated with a key contact or not. The idea is if you have multiple contacts from the same company, you can identify which of those contacts from that particular company are the key contacts, right? If you have 10 people that all work at, ING Direct or whatever, there's probably one or two that are actual key contacts that you want to get the mailers and you want to get different things, or that you want the agents to spend their time prospecting. That's all. It's just a field to search from. There's no security or anything else associated with it. There are a lot of our clients that don't actually use it. They hide the field on the form because their agents just don't use it. And if that's the case in your situation, in your office, you can do that as well. You can hide the field so you won't even see it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, yep. All right. So, are there any other questions about the contact? No? I'm going to go ahead and hit finish. You can see who created a record and the date it was created. You can see who revised the record and the date it was revised. Okay? But then there's also the change log. And if I edit this record and I come in here and I add a mobile number, and maybe I add an email address too. I'm going to hit finish. And so here's my record. So now it is a mobile number, it is an email address. If I go to my change log, this shows me the email address was blank. Now it's this. This is the person that did it and the date and time it was done. Here's the mobile number. It was blank. This is what the number is. User that did it and the date and time it was done. So I just wanted to point out that you do have the change log. Okay? All right. That change log is going to be really useful when information is changed on a record. You know it's changed, but you don't remember what it used to be, and you also want to know who changed it. Remember, this shows you who changed it last. But maybe the mobile number or the email address wasn't the last person to revise it. That was done by somebody else a year ago. Well, that's where the changelog really comes handy. Okay? So, are there any other questions before we move on from the external record? Is there anybody that doesn't understand what I just talked about or has any questions about that? No? Okay. Hopefully you find it relatively easy to go in and add a contact, especially with that new short form or the smaller form that we put together that doesn't require a company name. Because I know before that was a real point of contention with some people. Okay. Let's talk about internal contacts, because that's kind of the meat of this. I'm going to edit this record. Remember, I'm logged in as an administrator, so I can go into my contact settings, and I can change this to internal. If you are creating an internal record, you have a new employee that's starting, you create their record, change it from external to internal. When I do, I mentioned that there's security settings that go along with that. Everyone pay attention. Is there anybody that can't see my mouse moving around right now? Okay. Just a side note to everybody. If you have the GoToMeeting toolbar on your screen, you should have a little orange arrow that faces to the right. If you click it, it will collapse up the toolbar into a much smaller one. Okay, so I just wanted to point that out. But if you notice where my mouse is, it ends at groups right here. When I go to the bottom and hit finish, watch, you're going to see some additional links that will show up. But before I do, remember, if the person you're adding, this internal person, this new employee at your office, you need to ask yourself, does this person need to show up on the website, on the Lee & Associates website? If the answer is yes, publish to web needs to be set to yes. If the answer is no, you hired a new admin, for example, or a new marketing person, or a new researcher, and their name is not supposed to go on the website. And leave it on no. The default is no. Okay? But if the person's on the web, go ahead and change publish to web to yes. Now, I'm going to go to the bottom, and I'm going to hit finish. Do you see how I have another link here now that wasn't there before? And if I hover over it, I have locations, business lines, divisions, teams, and bio. Now, I have gotten, it seems like fairly recently, I've gotten a fair amount of emails with people asking me this question. They're going in and they're closing a deal. They're going into the closed deal, and business line and location are blank. Or business line just has one thing in it. It's just industrial. But the deal that needs to be closed is an office deal or a retail deal. So they choose the one value. For some of you, I've been getting emails or phone calls. There's nothing in there. And it won't let me. Look, if I go to the bottom and say continue, forget about all these other ones. Office location is a required field. So you come back here and you go to the pull down and there's nothing to choose from. So then you get even more frustrated. So by the time I get the phone call or I get the email, your frustration level is already pretty high. This pull down shows the values that are entered on the user's contact record. So if you're the person that's going in and you don't have it, that means your contact record doesn't have anything in the location. Or if it's business line and you have industrial only, but you need office and retail and land and other business lines, but they're not in yours. They might be in another user in your offices, but they're not in yours. Look, I'm going to just go to my contact record. And I'm going to go to locations, and I'm going to add all of these. And I'm also going to go in to business lines Oh, I need a primary. And actually, I just did that in the wrong record. Sorry. Locations, we got everything. Add an extra record open here. Bear with me, everybody, please. I just want to illustrate my point here. So now I added that to my own contacts. So now when I go in to my closed deal form, if I refresh this, look. Remember, I only had the one value before. So if you come in and you don't have it, or you have a user that does not have any choices in the business line pull down, or doesn't have the choices they need in the business line pull down. Same with location. If it's blank or you have more than one office and they need all of the different offices that you have, go into their individual contact record and add the business lines and add location. And then they will then see the new values. Is there anybody that has any questions about that? I'm asking because I've gotten a fair amount of emails recently with people asking that same exact question. So I want to make sure everyone understands every internal contact in your company has got to have a minimum of one business line and one location. They can have more than that, but they have to have a minimum of one. If you don't see the values that you're looking for when you're logged in, you don't have them on your record. Okay? If it's another user in your office, they don't have it on their record. But on the closed deal form, on the project form, the values that the user will see are what's entered in their own record. Okay? Any questions about that before we move on? No? Is there anybody that doesn't understand that? Is there anybody that has any questions about that? That's a real important thing when you're creating a new employee's record. Oh, everyone gets it. Awesome. Fantastic. That being said, if you still encounter that, email me or call me and I'll help you resolve it. But hopefully everybody now knows what they need to do if that situation comes up again for you. Now, with your internal records, if you determine that the person needs to be on the website, if it's an agent that you're adding, and their information is on the web, you need to go to the contact bio and add a bio. You don't have to add, you don't have to add any of this, but the more you do, the more information will show up for that agent on the website, on the Lee & Associates website. If you're using Chrome, you can drag these boxes open as large as you want. If you're using Internet Explorer, it won't let you open the boxes. It'll just add a little scroll bar to the right as you exceed the little box. You can cut and paste. So if you have you have a new agent that gets on board, they have a resume or they have their information on their old company's website, you can copy and paste it right into the little boxes. If they have specialties, go ahead and choose whatever specialties they have. If there's more than one, hit the add button and it drops another line down. If you don't need to add another line, don't hit add. Just choose what you want. You want to attach a resume. find where you have it, and upload it. And then submit. Okay? That's how the information gets on the website for your agent, is through the bio from their own contact record. Okay? All right. With the teams, if you need to add the contact into a specific team, this shows you the teams that they're added to. Teams are added by a network administrator. Again, you have to be an administrator. I think most of you on the call are, but you have to be a network administrator to add those teams. Teams are added here, not in the individual contact. From the contact, you can see the teams that they're on. And it even says, it tells you right here, you manage them through the main dashboard, right? So right here are the user teams. If you need to add a new one, you have the green circle with the white plus in the middle. And some of you might be wondering, well, I don't even know what teams are. Why do I need to add a team? The idea is, with this system, on just about everything you do in here, it can be made public or private. Everything. Whether it's a note or a whole property or a comp or a contact, whatever it is, it can be public or private. Well, all the records that can be public or private, they're either public to the whole company, and again, just your office, not all of Lean Associates, just your office. It's public to everybody. It's private to a specific individual, or it's private to an individual and anybody they choose to share it with, or finally, it's private to just a team of people. Well, the team that you're making it private to, you determine who the people are on the team. And let me mention this, when you're setting these up, if you have contacts that you have somebody for, and I'm going to use contacts as an example, but it works for any of them. Rather than if you say this record needs to be private, but I want these 3 people to be able to see it. So that if those same 3 people work together on pretty much everything they do, and they share their information just amongst the 3 of them. I recommend create a team for those 3 people. Don't just add all 3 of them as individuals. And the reason I say that is, if you add the team as having the ability to see the record, if one of those individuals leaves the team, you don't have to go in and remove them from all the records that they're attached to. Instead, you just remove them from the team, and boom, they no longer can see them. They add a new team member, you add the new team member to the team, and just like that, boom, now they can see all of those records. Without having to go into each one and add that person. Now that being said, when I say go into each record, you don't have to do it individually. For those of you that didn't know this tool existed in here, you have the ability, sorry, I spelled that wrong, I put a bracket in there. You have the ability to select a set of records from the I want to pull down, add or remove permissions. So I could go in and add a specific individual as having the ability to see all 25 of these records. But I still recommend using the team in a situation like that. It's just easier to manage when someone leaves the team or someone else comes on board and joins the team. It will make your life so much easier than having to go into the individual records and put them on. Okay? Are there any questions about that? Guys, it's real important. The business lines, the locations, even the bio, the teams, everyone's clear on that? Mm-hmm. Awesome. Okay, fantastic. All right, so before we move on, are there any questions at all about contacts? internal contacts, external contacts. Any questions at all about that? About security? Everyone gets it? Okay. I'm only asking because I get emails on a regular basis with people asking questions about it, which is totally fine. But if you have a question, don't be shy. Just shout it out. If you have it, chances are someone else also has the same question. All right. Going once, going twice. Sold to the highest bidder. All right, let's move on. Okay, so let's get off of contacts here and let's talk about personnel files. And personnel files, they refer to only internal people within your office. Now, if I hover over HR, here's personnel files. The ability to see this menu item here to begin with is through the logins. Not every user has the ability to see it. You determine through the user groups who you want to be able to see it. Now, if you notice, there are two of them. Admin and compensation. You can give somebody admin, which gives that user the right to see the menu. They can see the different links here. They can add personnel files, but they cannot add compensation. They cannot add the commission split plan. They cannot add the compensation history. Those things are only visible or accessible to people who have this user group as well. The reason I'm saying that is there are a lot of companies that will give somebody, a marketing person or an admin or somebody, the rights to add the HR records, to add licenses, to go in and attach stuff to their file cabinet of their HR record, but not have access to see their compensation, not have the ability to see what type of split plan on. Okay, so if you have a situation, your office is set up that way, you can always give someone the rights to add the records and then just tell you, okay, once you get the record done, let me know and I'll go in and put in the compensation stuff. Not anything you need to worry about. So you would need to have both of these. Okay? But the idea is when you have it, you will then see these different links. If we click on personnel files, these are the existing records. I'm going to hit the new button. Now, for you to create a personnel file for somebody, they have to have a contact record in the system. Okay? So if you have a new employee that comes on board, an agent, for example, the workflow has to be you add their contact record first. Then you can create the login, because remember, you can't create a login and password for them if they don't have a contact record. It all starts with their contact. Add their contact record, then you could create a login and password if they're even going to be getting into the system. Once they have their contact, then go in and create their personnel record. Okay? And this is kind of cool. This is the form for the HR record, for their personnel file. If you notice, this pull down has a list of names on it. This is a list of everybody internal within the company. The reason I said this is cool is because as you create a personnel file for someone, their name comes off of this pull down. So for example, let's just take Bill. I don't know who Bill is, but let's just take Bill. Bill is my new agent. The only required fields on this form are in yellow. You can see there's not too many of them. I know that this person is a contractor, and I know they're active. Okay? Now, you also need to choose, are they a shareholder, yes or no? And actually, let me do this real quick. You guys, as Lee and Associates, you have a different field on here that, actually, no, it was on the shareholder, yes or no. It was on that other form as well. Okay. This is not required to add their record, but it is required for the business statistics reporting. So it's real important that you determine, are they a shareholder, yes or no. That was a heavy sigh. Sorry. If we come in here and actually I'm going to go back to our demo because I don't want to mess with the Lee and Associates corporate site. You're going to choose contractor. You're going to choose their status. Are they a shareholder, yes or no? And any other information you want to put in. For those of you that are tracking your on spreadsheets, I recommend adding as much information as you would track on that spreadsheet and do away with the spreadsheet. For those of you that are using a third-party HR program or you do through your payroll, I would probably continue to use that and not bother with any of this stuff. Just do the minimum fields that you have, and that's it. Once you get all the information entered, go ahead and hit finish. If you notice, we create our HR record for Bill. When I go in and create a new one, see how Bill's name is off the pull down? So if you are creating an HR record for every single person in your office, when you go to this pull down, it should be blank. There should be no names there at all until you add a brand new employee, brand new agent, then their name will be in the pull down. You create their HR record, it comes off again. So that's a good indication, does the person have an HR record? If you see their name here, they don't have one. Once their record is created, that's where you can go in and add the licenses. Okay? If you, on the license, if you want to keep track of it, you guys can edit this pull down. So you can see the different types of licenses that you can add. If you want to put in other values here, you can put in whatever you want. You don't have to do the license, but a lot of you keep track of that on a spreadsheet. If you do, I would keep track of it here, right in the person's HR record. Also, if you want to keep track of if they have a goal that's set for them, if they have any benefits. Maybe you guys offer medical or dental. Probably not for the agents, but for everyone else you do. If you do for the agents, go ahead, you can add this for them. On their records, what are they taking advantage of? Again, probably information you'd be tracking on a spreadsheet. If that's the case, I would track it here. And it's pretty simple. 401k, I don't know, Charles Schwab, put in their account number, whatever that is. If you want, you can put in, start date, end date, then submit. And there it is. If you want to edit or delete it, you can always get rid of it using the little blue arrow, the little link. Okay? Going back to licenses, if you want to keep track of that, pretty straightforward. And what's the expiration date? Okay, and I'll hit submit. Okay, once you add the license to that person's HR record, okay, You can then come in here. If you want to see whose licenses are expiring, you don't have to go into each individual personnel file to see that. Right here under HR, just click on licenses, and it's going to bring it up. The red means it's already expired. Yellow means it's expiring within the year. Green means more than a year. But the idea is you could always come in here and then do a search. Show me all the agents whose licenses are expiring at the end of this month or the end of the quarter or whatever. I don't know how much lead time you give them for their continuing education. But the idea is you can come in and search and pull up a list of just the people whose licenses are expiring within whatever date range you want. Does anybody have any questions about that? None at all? Okay, great. Find our bill. There he is. Okay. All right, here's our personnel file. Now, all of that stuff is all good and well, and that's nice, but the compensation, you have to do that. Some of you send emails or you'll call me and you're trying to apply payment to a deal, and it tells you that the person doesn't have a valid commission split plan. They don't have an HR or compensation history. This is where you enter it in. This is what you need that additional security to see. If you add just HR to someone's login, HR admin, to somebody's login and password, excuse me, if you add just this one, they'll see reports, licenses, goal, benefits, and notes files. They will not see this link. This link is only visible to people who have this, compensation. They don't have compensation, they won't see it. This is where you go in and create their split plans. When you're setting these up, if you know your split plan does not change every year, and I'm not talking about starting out from zero again, I'm talking about the actual split levels changing, the thresholds changing. If you know that they don't change every year, for the end date of your plan, I would put something in the future. That way you don't need to worry about it. If you do need to change it, you can. If the decision is made, you know, we are going to change the plan to something more aggressive or less aggressive, whatever the case is, you can always edit it. But I would set the end date pretty far out in the future. That way you just don't even have to worry about it. And you're going to want to name it. I recommend standard or something of that nature, because each individual user or each individual agent can have multiple split plans. You want to be able to distinguish which is the standard one or which is our normal one versus the exception, or, you know, depending on what the case is. You also have a default plan. You're going to select it by default. So when you're closing a deal, if the person has more than one plan, it's going to default to whichever plan you designate as the default. The default for this pull down is on payment application. There are two choices. I don't think there's a single office, Lee & Associates office, or actually any of our other clients as well, that pay the agents when a deal is booked. When the company gets paid, the agent gets paid. The company doesn't get paid, the agent doesn't get paid. So that's what the default on payment application. And here's where you're going to put the thresholds. So from 0 to 250 is, let's say, a 50-50 split. When I hit add, it drops another line down. If you notice, it used to not do this a while back, but now it copies that over for you. This and this have to match. Once you get your split plan defined, just hit submit. and you're good to go. And it breaks it out for you right here. Just remember, this and this, whoops, have to match. And this one and this one have to match. If they don't, it's not going to calculate their commissions properly. Matter of fact, I don't even think it'll let you now. Yep. You notice it doesn't even let you do it anymore. It used to, now it doesn't. Okay. Are there any questions about that?
I have a question. I wanted to know where, when you do the fee application report and it pulls the people involved in the transaction, is it pulling their contact record or their HR record? So on the fee application report, we have the vouchers, and then it'll usually say that person, the agent, whoever's involved, their name, and then an address. And we have somewhere it just shows the name and then the address area is blank, and I can't understand why, because both the contact and the HR record has an address.
Allie, that's you, right?
Yep.
That's a very good question. Did everybody understand the question? On the fee application report and on the vouchers, especially the vouchers, where it shows the person's address, the question is, where is that address coming from? It's on the contact. On their contact record, they have the company address, and on their HR record, they have the company address. Is where that's pulling from, Allie, is underneath accounting. It's pulling from their entity.
Okay.
The name they get paid under.
Okay.
So if I come in here and I go to create a new, so this is, we said Bill is our guy, so Sir Bill. That's the entity. And I need to link it to his record. If you do this from within a deal, it's already linked. But, so look, if I hit this button, it copies over all their address information. Anything that's in the contact that's linked to it, it'll copy over. So
okay.
For yours, Allie, you can open up, go to an agent that doesn't have it, go under accounting, go to vendors in-house, and then search for them. You're going to search by their vendor name. Now, lots of times the vendor name is just their first name and last name. But if they have an entity or a corporation or an LLC or something set up, right, and that's the name they get paid under, find it. And when you do, if you edit the record, just press the blue button, and see how it just populated 7,000 Birch?
Yep.
It'll populate that information for you. So you don't have to rekey it in. Just go ahead and do that. And then you'll see on the vouchers, it'll show up.
Awesome, thank you.
Yep. Same thing goes, guys, for customers. On your invoice, when you add the customer, who's the person that's getting the invoice? If you don't put an address, it's not going to show up. The customer record, this is the address that's going to show up on it. And again, if the customer is linked to a contact, if you hit the blue button, it'll automatically populate the address information, all this information that's entered on the contact record. So if you don't see the address on the invoice, some of you, I know, you'll put it into Word and you'll add it manually and then you'll send it out. Just go into their customer record and hit the big blue button. If nothing populates, it means that the contact record doesn't have any information either. So then you could either add it here and leave it off the contact, or go and add it to the contact and then hit the blue button and it'll populate everything for you. So does that make sense to everybody? Is there anybody that doesn't make sense to? Most importantly, Allie, does that make sense?
Yep, that makes sense.
Perfect. Awesome. If you have any problems with that, Allie, let me know, and I'm happy to check out the record or whatever, but that should do the trick for you. Okay?
Okay.
All right. So, going back to our HR record, just again, in terms of our workflow, you add a brand new, a new employee comes on board with the company, a new agent. You add the contact record. Then you edit the contact, you make it internal. You add business lines, you add locations, you add their bio information. If they're part of a team, you can add their team. Once that's done, create a login for them if it's someone who is going to be logging into the system. I would hope that they are, just so they have visibility into all their closed deal stuff, whether they're using it for anything else, doesn't matter. At least they'll have visibility into all their commissions and the deals that they've done. But that's just a side note, sorry. So you add their contacts, change it to internal, add the business lines, add the locations, add their bio, come in, go ahead and add their personnel file. When you do, after you have their personnel file, add their commission split plan, whatever plan they're on. If they're coming over and they have a certain plan, and part of the agreement is for the next 6 months you're on this certain plan, but then you kick into our normal one, add them both. Add their special plan, their whatever they negotiated, and then add their standard one as well. Just make one of them the default. Whichever one they're going to be using the most of, make that the default. If your agent has a separate plan, maybe not someone new that came over, but in your particular office for referrals, for example, maybe they don't make the same split levels on a referral deal as they do on a normal deal that they did, right? A lease or a sale or whatever. So have a referral plan set up. So for the referrals, you just select a plan and the system will know what to pay them under. Okay? But once you have their commission split plan set up, then go to the history. You need to add a history record. It will not let you apply a payment to a deal unless they have a compensation history record. Hit the new button right here. You can put in just hire or whatever you want. What you put here is somewhat irrelevant. But what's the effective date? What's their status? They're active. They have, excuse me, they have to be active. And then here's something also for you guys, for Lee, you want to put their classification. The two choices are associate or shareholder. You want to indicate on here as well whether they're an associate or shareholder. Again, for the business statistics report. I'm in our demo site, which is why I have these other values. But for you guys, there should only be two. They're either an associate or they're a shareholder. That's it. So in this case, I'll just say commission, and I know we're just on a calendar year, so I'm going to leave that. Any of this other information you want to put, if you're creating HR records for non-commissioned people, you can always put what their bonus is or what their pay rate, that other, the other information you can put right in here. If someone takes a leave of absence, you have a few fields you can populate. Someone gets terminated, you have the ability to keep track of, the termination date, how many vacation hours they had left, why they were terminated. All of this is all in their HR record. But for your agents, doesn't matter about this, doesn't matter about that, doesn't matter about the termination stuff. As a matter of fact, if you know you're not using it, hide it. Simplify your form. Get it off there. So you don't even have to look at it. You need to have this information right here and this information. That's it. And once you set this up once, you don't have to do it again for that same person, unless, of course, there's some sort of change that you want to keep track of. But it's real important you add their commission split plan, and then you add compensation history. If you go to apply payment to a deal, and it tells you the person doesn't have a valid split plan, and it may say they don't have a valid split plan within the date range of the payment. And I don't know if that's the exact nomenclature or language they use, but it's going to be something like that. It just means that their split plan, maybe the end date on their split plan is 2015 and you're booking a deal in 2016. Or their split plan is for 2016, but you're entering a payment that came in 2015. Well, it's not going to let you apply that payment. Go to their split plan and make sure that it's valid for the date range that the payment is being made under. If you go in and it says they don't have a history record, go into the person's HR record and add a compensation history record. It won't let you apply the payment unless you have that. I'm only reiterating this because I'm still getting emails and calls where people are trying to apply payments and they get this message and they're saying, it's broken, I don't know what to do, it's not letting me apply the payment. It's because the person, the agent on the deal who's getting money, doesn't have one or both of these. Or the split plan they do have is invalid. Are there any questions about that? No? So I'm not going to get an email from any of you guys saying, I tried to apply payment and I'm getting this weird, you can send me a screenshot. I'm getting this message. How do I fix it? Everyone gets it? Awesome. Fantastic. Does anybody have any questions about anything else relating to this? Bueller? No? No one has any questions about any of this stuff? Okay. That's phenomenal. I find it hard to believe, but that's phenomenal. None of you have any questions. Everybody gets it. Awesome. Okay. Does anybody have any questions about contacts? Just internal contacts, external contacts, or about the HR module or personnel files? Does anybody have any questions at all about any of this stuff? Wow, crickets. Okay, awesome. Love to hear it. Well, that was kind of all that I have for this session. Unless you guys have anything else you wanted to talk about, that's all I have. So I guess have a fantastic afternoon and a good rest of your week. And I guess I will talk to you all later. And Allie, I'm going to follow up on that relationship thing and I'll let you know, okay?
All right, thank you.
Yep. But, all right, guys, have a great afternoon and a good rest of your week. I'll speak to you later.
Thanks,
Bye.
you too. Thanks. Bye-bye.